All right, so today, or for the first question, we are dropping what's being dropped? A table tennis ball, and then with a number on it that corresponds to a certain prize, and then somebody's going to catch it. The person who catches it is 17 feet above the ground, and the initial height of the blimp is 45 feet, as the picture shows. So one edit to this question is that the H at the end here is supposed to be an S, because do you remember what S stands for? No, it stands for speed. Lincoln? It stands for starting height. V, velocity, is your initial velocity, and velocity is speed. S is the starting height. The H, usually we set our equation equal to H because we're trying to find the time that it reaches the ground, but in this case we're going to set our equation equal to 17 because we're trying to find the time that the ball reaches a height of 17 feet above the ground. So for our H, we're going to replace it with 17. Pay attention to the board. The board. Negative 16 t squared. Now, what are we going to put for V? Yes, because since the ball is being dropped, the initial velocity is 0. Anything that drops or free fall, initial velocity is 0. And then your starting height is 45 feet. Now, even if you try to subtract the 17 over and do difference of squares, you can't, because 45 minus 17 is 28, and 28 is not a difference of squares. So we're just going to solve this using square roots by isolating the t squared, which means that we need to subtract the 45 over first. So subtract, divide, and then we'll take the square root at the very end to get our answer. So if I subtract 45 over, you would get negative 28. And then we will divide both sides by negative 16. So the negatives cancel out, which is good because otherwise we don't want to take the square root of a negative number. And what's 28 divided by 16? 1.75. And then we're going to take the square root of that to get our final answer. Raghav?
0.66.
You sure about that?
1.32. Yeah, it's 1.32.
That is the answer. What did you do? You take the square root of 1.75?
You didn't put it into
It wouldn't.
we simplified 28 over 16.
Well, yeah, the square root of 7 over 4.
Wait.
What is that? Maybe you did the square root of 7 and then accidentally put the 4 on the outside? Yeah, that's what you did. You see the difference? Yeah.
That was a negative number.
Oh, okay. So Jeffrey's like, wait a second. I thought when we take the square root, we're supposed to have plus or minus. But this is a word problem with time. Maybe. Oh, okay. Never mind. Square root of negative. Well, you should have gotten negative 1.75 because the negatives cancel it out.
Negative 1.75 equals t squared.
Well, no, because like I just said, the negative should have canceled out back over here. When you had negative 28 divided by negative 16, and then it becomes positive. And then, but back what I was saying, normally when we take a square root of a number, if it's not a word problem, we will do plus or minus. But since this is a word problem, you can't have negative time. So you're just going to have positive 1.32 seconds for your answer. If you graph the equation, it would still intersect at positive and negative 1.32, but we're not graphing. Time starts at 0. All right, so then this question, you can do this one on your own. Basically, the same idea is you take the NASA drops the probe to the moon, and instead of finding the time that the probe lands on the moon, you're finding the time that the probe reaches a height of 64 kilometers above the moon. So you set that equal to your H. So 60, maybe I'll help you set up the equation. So 64 equals the rest of the equation, and then you solve for t in the same way. Okay, let's skip down to parts C and D on number 3. So remember, with these type of questions, you can't distribute the square because that's the fatal error. You're not going to expand out the x minus 9 because that makes it more complicated. You can't distribute the 5 because the parentheses are stuck in the square root. So all you can do is divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 5 first to get rid of the 5. Because then the idea is we have something squared equals 8. And now we can take the square root to get the x minus 9 out of the square that it's in. So we would write x minus 9 equals, now remember, when the step that you take the square root at, that's what you have to do plus or minus with. So plus or minus the square root of 8. Then you would add the 9 over. So x equals 9 plus or minus the square root of 8. And you would have 9 minus the square root of 8 and 9 plus the square root of 8. Just don't forget to write the plus or minus symbol and keep it until the very end when you split off the answer into 1 plus and 1 minus. So what do you get with the minus? Jeffrey? Yes? So that's one answer, and then what's the other answer? Augie? Good. Okay. Not that part D is harder than part C. In fact, it's easier because you can do it without a calculator. But there's a part in part D where you guys make mistakes sometimes by not including the plus or minus symbol. So let's divide by 2. You get y plus 4 squared equals 9. And then you take the square root. Just because the answer comes out to be a whole number, though, doesn't mean we don't include the plus or minus symbol. So you do still have plus or minus 3. That's where people forget, is that they don't include the plus or minus symbol if it comes out to be an integer. So then we subtract the 4 over and get y equals negative 4 plus or minus 3. So you have negative 4 minus 3, which is negative 7. And then you have, for the other answer, you have negative 4 plus 3, which is negative 1. So negative 7 and negative 1. If you didn't have the plus or minus symbol, a lot of people would just do negative 4 plus 3, which is negative 1, and then they just say plus or minus 1, but that's not the answer. The answer is negative 1 and negative 7, not negative 1 and positive 1. All right, good. We're getting through this even quicker than the last class. So flip your page over. We will do problem 4 together. So for number 4, you could factor it if you want, or you could do negative b over 2a. What do you guys want to do? Well, if you want to factor it, you can factor it. If you want to do negative b over 2a, you can do negative b over 2a. I'm going to factor it. So I'm going to factor out, what would you factor out here? Because this isn't a trinomial, so it's not like the two factors that we're used to. It's GCF factoring. Brendan? Negative 2x. So 0 equals negative 2x. And then we would have x plus 2 in the parentheses. So you get x equals 0 here and x equals negative 1. Oh, negative 2. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself. So 0 for one intercept and negative 2 for the other x-intercept. And then that would help you get the vertex, because the vertex is halfway between the zeros at negative 1. So you have one of two options. You could plug it into the x's in the original equation in your head. You can type this into your y equals and look at the table. Or you could use your calculator to help you get the 0 to get the vertex. Like, for example, I'm just going to type in, if I were doing this, I'd just do it on my paper and figure it out. But I'll show you. If you use your calculator, just make sure that you put parentheses around your negative, around your x. So you have -2 from the equation. You have -1 that you're squaring. And then -4 times -1. And that comes out to be +2. So -1, +2, which checks out because our parabola should be opening down and it has a slope of -2. The only thing we should do next is plot another point on the other side at 1 and -2. So if I plug in 1 for x, I already have the work in my calculator. I just can copy it down and delete the negative sign. Do you guys know about the delete button in your calculator? It's del, delete. And then press enter and you get -6, which makes sense because that is the shape of a parabola. So -6 and -6. Now you can graph our parabola. My graph is not the best because this is kind of small. Henry? Because the vertex is halfway between the zeros. So if I use the zeros by factoring, 0, -2, halfway between that is -1. Let's say you didn't want to factor, or you didn't think to factor, or it wasn't factorable. You would just do -b over 2a. So for that one, it would be -b, which is -4, over 2 times a, which is -2. But that still comes out to be -1. And then you could plug in extra values. You could use your table and your calculator to get more points, etc. Now, how do we graph the other one? Y equals 2. All lines are straight. Sideways, you're going like this. So that's horizontal. Yeah, horizontal line. At 2. Crosses through 2. Right. The solution would be the same as the vertex because that's the only point it touches at -1, 2. Okay, B. We're not going to do it together, but just for a warning, your vertex is going to be a decimal or fraction. Don't fret. Just plot it. It's going to look weird. The rest of the points, though, what I did is I just plugged it into my y equals on my calculator, and I got extra points by looking at the table. The other points that you plot will be integers. They will not be fractions. And your answers for this will be integers, not fractions or decimals. So you should get answers that line up with the grid. Okay. Let's do 5b next. Because in 5b, you have this negative sign here. And there was, I know, 2 questions on the homework that had a -x² and what to do with that. So easiest method, this says algebraically, so that either means substitution or elimination. You probably found from the homework that substitution's a little easier to think about because you just set them equal to each other right away. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to take the quadratic and set it equal to the linear equation. Linear means it's a straight line. Guys, too. Do you know that? Linear. One time on the day after the OST, somebody asked me what linear meant because they kept seeing it show up on the test. Linear means a line. All right, now I'm going to move All right, so instead of subtracting the 4x and adding the 6 over, since the x squared is negative, I'm going to add all of these terms or subtract them over to this side. So I'm going to add the 2 over to make this side equal to 0. Because I can't factor if the leading coefficient is negative. So add the x squared over. If I subtract the 4x over, though, the 4x's are going to cancel out. And then negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. How do you factor something like this? Jeffrey? A difference of squares. You could solve with square roots, but let's say we just wanted to do difference of squares. So x plus 2, x minus 2. Or you could add the 4 over, take the square root, and do plus or minus. I don't care which way you do it, but the one on the quiz is going to need to be factored like this. It won't be a difference of squares. So we get x's that are negative 2 and positive 2. So that gives us the x coordinate for both solutions. Now you just need to plug it back into the equation to get the y coordinates. Now what equation? Either. The short answer is either. The other answer is the one that is easier to use, which is the 4x minus 6. So if I take 4 times negative 2 minus 6, what is that? Yes, negative 14. Brilliant. And if I change that to a plus, what do I get? Kylie? Yes. And then those would be our answers. Any questions? All right, now to the word problems. So prepare your calculator. There will be one word problem on the quiz. It'll be like how number 6 is set up, but you have to draw a sketch like you do number 7. It'll be like number 7. Yeah, except not years, like horizontal distance. Kind of similar to number 9. It'll kind of be like number 9 too.
So there's only one word problem.
There's one word problem that's with your graphing calculator, and there's one like number 1 and 2, where you don't use a graphing calculator. You just solve with square roots. It'll tell you. It'll say solve algebraically or show your work. Yeah. Okay. So we have an equation here that tells us what the bridge looks like. So we're going to type it into our y equals. What? So negative 0.00211 x squared, and then plus 1.06x, and then we're going to, I don't know, let's just press zoom 6 and see what it looks like. Zoom 6. Well, that looks like a line. That looks like a line because we are zoomed in very far and we need to zoom out. So you're going to go to your window, and this is the part that takes a little bit of experimenting. So we can pick bigger numbers to see what it looks like. I'm going to keep my x min and y min the same. How far over do you think we should go?
Like 100.
Let's try 100. How far up do you think we should go?
Like 100.
Okay, let's try 100. That's an easy place to start. Now click on graph. Okay, that might be big enough going up, but definitely not big enough going over, so we need to increase our x max. We can't even see the vertex, so even doubling it to 200 won't be big enough.
So like 100,000. 1,000.
That might be too big. 1,000 might even be a little too big. What did you pick? You did 1,000. I picked 700, in fact, so I'm going to do 700. If you picked 1,000, fine, you can leave it like that. we do, wait, let me click on that and see if that's good. Okay, I can't see my maximum, my vertex, so I need to go back up and increase my y max to 200. And I'm going to do something else. Do you see how when I graph it, I click on graph, I don't have a lot of space down here. I do need to find the zeros. So one thing you can do, and you don't have to do this, but with a little bit of foresight, it can make your life easier. I'm going to change my y min to 20. That way it goes down a little farther, and I can figure out what the zeros are. All right, so that's my window. If you need to copy it down for your window, it's fine. If you're having any window troubles and calculator troubles on the quiz, like you can ask me, okay? I can't tell you exactly what to do, but I can give you some hints. I know this is all really new, but because it's a quiz. I'm testing if you know how to do it on your own. All right, so let's click on graph. Perfect. So first question is find the maximum height of the bridge. So we're going to use our maximum button by going to second, calc, max, number 4. And remember, this is where we go to the left of the max. Pay attention. Click a point on the left of the maximum point and press enter. And then pick a point on the right of the maximum.
I got a weird number.
Well, just hang on and press enter, and then enter one more time, and I get, yep, that is exactly the right answer. So the maximum height would be the y value, 133.13. You could just round to the nearest meter, or you can write 2 decimal places. It doesn't, oh no, it does say round to the nearest 100. So let's go to our answers. It says 133.13 meters. And if you're having any calculator troubles, feel free to come up here and show me what is wrong, and I can help you. How wide is the bridge at its base? So what that's asking for, so like this is your x and y axis of the bridge. This is asking for this intersection point here, which is your zeros. So let's say hint, find the zeros. It will not have these hints on the quiz. So we need to find the zeros. So let me remind you how to use your zeros button. So second, calc, option 2 is zeros. So you arrow over to get a point on the left. If you're ever not sure, what? What? That's the left? That is the left of the zero. Okay, if you're ever not sure, put your cursor on the zero and then just click the left button. That takes it to the left of the zero. And then you press enter. And then you want to pick a point on the right, so you click the right arrow until you get to the right of it. You can't just click it once. You have to click it a couple times until you get to the right of the zero, which is usually going to be below it if the other one was above the x-axis. And then press enter. And then you have to press enter one more time. If it says guess, you're not done yet. You have to press one more time until it says 0, and then it says 502. If yours says like 1e negative 11, that just means 0.0000 11 times, and then a 1 basically means 0. So if you get e negative something, that just means it's such a small number, and your calculator is not always the best at rounding those big numbers, the small numbers.
502. Do we round to the next one? That one too.
Yeah.
502.
502.37 meters. Now, the road can be modeled by the equation y equals 52. To the nearest meter, how far from the left plans are the 2 points where the road intersects the arc of the bridge? It gives you a hint. So, as you can see in the picture, it has this horizontal line that represents the road. We can type that into our calculator into our y2, and it'll give us the same thing, and we can use our intersect button that we learned how to use yesterday. So click on 52, and then you will click back to graph. Do not press zoom 6 because then it'll get rid of your window. And then we'll use our intersect button. Was there anybody who wasn't here yesterday? Okay. I feel like that was in the other class maybe. So second calc intersect is option 5. So you can pick either one to start with. I'm just going to pick the one on the left first. I have to arrow over it to get close to it. You don't have to get exactly on it. I like the intersect button because it's so easy to use, because you just have to press enter 3 times. There's no left right bound thing that you have to mess with. You don't have to click your left and right arrows. It automatically jumps to the second curve. So first curve, second curve, guess, and then it gives you the intersection point, which is 55, 52. So the 55 is going to be the answer to our question, because that's the horizontal distance from the left pylon. Don't ask me what a pylon is, but I think it's just the thing that holds the bridge together.
So would it be the coordinates or 55?
Just 55 meters, and then you're going to go and find this one by doing the same steps. Start with the intersect button and then arrow over to your intersection point. So second calc 5, arrow. The one on the quiz, or the one on the homework, that was a word problem that used your calculator, or did it use a calculator? Maybe not, but it was like this, but you could solve it with factoring. So enter, enter, enter. And then it said, so you got your zeros, which were, 55 and 447. And then it said to write an inequality that represents the amount of time, or I don't know, whatever it was above. So between these two, you would put like 55 less than x less than 447. So everything in between here, the bridge is above the road. So you're driving here, and then you're under the bridge in between 55 and 447, and then you're not under the bridge anymore. Does that make sense? See? Algebra in real life.
I don't get
No bueno. This?
Yeah.
It's just an inequality. It asks when, I don't remember the word problem, but it asks on the homework when it's going to be above. So do you see how in between 55 and 447 the bridge is above the road? That says in between. X is in between 55 and 447. That's what this means with the inequalities. Yes.
With the inequality, always be less than.
If you're writing it from least to greatest, yes, which you should be. If you're writing a double inequality, like a compound, always start with your least number, your biggest number, then you always be facing to the bigger number. All right, next question is about hydrochlorofluorocarbons. Say that 10 times fast. Hydrochlorofluorocarbons. Or HCFCs in the atmosphere from 1995 to 2003 can be modeled by that equation, so let's type it into our calculator. It's no, I messed it up. Hydrochlorofluorocarbons. Exactly. Yep. Welcome to chemistry. All right. So negative 0.222 x squared. And I'm not kidding with you. This equation was from the textbook. Huh? Some of them. Yeah. Not always. AI is really bad at math. I don't know if you guys ever noticed that, but AI is terrible at making word problems and other examples.
I don't use it. You should probably use one. I've heard of it.
Google Gemini.
Okay, let's just click on graph and see if that previous window is good for us. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it's too big. So let's cut off a lot of this. Remember, we went to 700. So probably if we just went to 100 for X max, that'd be fine. And we can chop off, let's just do 100 and 100. We could probably chop off a lot of that. So I'm going to change that to 100 for X max and then 100 for Y max. And then you can click on the graph. I'll give you a second to write that down. And then you're going to do the same steps. So part A is the maximum number of HCFCs. And then part B, you're finding the zeros. But once you find the zeros, then you have to write the year that it is. And then in part C, which is something you're going to have to do on your quiz, is drawing a sketch of the graph. The sketch of the graph is supposed to be super easy. You just have to put the information that you found from doing the problem in a graph and what your calculator shows you. So this is fine. Honestly, if you wanted to, you could even make the X max 50, which is what I put in the notes. Okay, so that kind of makes it look a little bit better. You don't have to do this though. All right, so step 1 is let's find the maximum. Augie? It was 100. It's the equation that's in the...
I did that when I try to find you do a square? Yeah. When I try to find the maximum, you won't. I can't find my curve.
Okay, so you guys go ahead and find the maximum point. Tell me what the X is. Write down the X too, because you need my zero. Okay, if you can't find your cursor, you probably need to go to the left because your cursor was way over here. If you see at the bottom, it says X equals, what does it say? X equals what? Okay, if I says X equals 60 or X equals 80, that means you need to go to the left to see it.
I found it out.
Gotcha. You weren't clicking maximum, you were clicking minimum. You're going to need to make the Y min negative, at least negative 10 to find the zeros.
I know I can just go under the thing.
Oh, okay. All right. Then that's fine.
And I also have a question.
As long as you know.
Is my calculator just messed up and you just need a sandwich?
That's correct.
What you saying there? I need to go 3 minutes.
When I try to do my zero.
What you seeing there?
What? 2 points.
What you seeing there?
From this? Yeah, because you need 2.27 plus 1.73. You know, get 4.
I'm just on track.
Then you went down.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about it. What if there's...
Yeah, you have 1.73 and then you subtract 4. Yeah, that's the right. Yes, write down the X value that it gives you too, because you're going to need that for your picture. Hang on a second. Your zero's not zeroing. Okay, does anybody need help with the maximum? Okay, let me show you how to get the zeros. So second...
I did the right thing, but it's not giving me 0 for Y. It gave me 1. Yeah, the 0 isn't...
Yes, remember what I said, you guys. That means 0, okay? So it's just 0.000011 times 1. And then it basically means 0. It's just not rounded right. So we're going to do, I'm just going to quick for the video, show the maximum. So I'm going to go to the left bound, enter, right bound, enter one more time. So 15.1 and then 68.23. But the answer to the question is 68.23 thousand metric tons. Yeah, you need to find the 0 for the next part. So hypothetically, according to the model, in what year would the number of HCFCs in the atmosphere be 0? I will just show it for the video. So second calc, zeros, arrow over so that I'm to the left of the 0, about there. Then to the right of the 0, about there. One more time. Well, it's going to say, the question is what year. So if it's 32 point whatever, it's still the year 32. So if X equals 32.6, then what year would that correspond to? Kylie? Yes. And then we're going to draw a sketch of our graph. So our sketch, I do have it up there that you can see too, but our sketch just has an X and a Y axis, which will already be set up for you. The sketch has to have the three things. the y-intercept, x-intercept, and the maximum. So it starts here at the y-intercept, it goes up, and then it comes back down. So the y-intercept is whatever the c is, which here is the 17.667. The vertex was the 15 and the 68. For the sake of space here, I'm not going to write the decimals. And then the x-intercept is 32. And you have to label your x and y axis. Make sure you at least get your graph done before you go to lunch. And so this would be years, or you could write time. And the y is HCFC, unless you want to write out hydrochlorofluorocarbons. I said that right. Wrong. Hydrochlorofluorocarbons.
How'd you get 15?
Because when I did my vertex, I wrote it down because I knew I had to put it in my sketch. That's the x coordinate of the vertex. Yeah, the y value is no. That was just from doing the max button. Okay, so let's talk about what you can do tomorrow to study for your quiz. I would go back and finish this. The answer key. Yep, the answer key is in Polaris. So you can check your answers and work on your GMM if you haven't finished it, because that'll help you on your quiz tomorrow. And besides that, just make sure you have your homework done from the last couple days. No.